It was 2:14 a.m. when the phone began to move. Not ring, not buzz. Just move. On a cracked screen glowing faint blue in the dark, a single dot slid across the map, pulsing through silence like a heartbeat. The app said, "Find my iPhone," but what it found wasn't a phone. It was a trail, slow, deliberate, and alive. Outside, the night was brittle and colorless. Rain traced silver threads down the windshield of a parked car, the only sound a faint ticking from the cooling engine. A young woman sat behind the wheel, eyes fixed on the screen in her palm. The blue dot drifted through back streets she knew too well, across a bridge past the edge of town, then into the darkness beyond. Her breath fogged the glass. Her hand trembled, because the phone that was moving belonged to her boyfriend, and he wasn't supposed to be moving at all. 2 hours earlier, he'd texted he was home, exhausted, turning in for the night. But the map said otherwise. It showed him traveling north, steady, mechanical, into a part of the county where no one went after midnight unless they were running from something or burying it. When she dialed his number, the sound that came through wasn't a voice. It was the echo of gravel under tires, a car door opening, then nothing. The line cut to static. In that instant, the glowing dot stopped. One final pulse, then stillness. The next morning, detectives would stand in the same spot the map had led her to, an empty field off County Road 19, dew trembling on the grass. And there, beneath the quiet hum of early sirens, they would find a secret the liar never meant to leave behind. Morning came with that washed-out gray that never quite becomes daylight. In the quiet suburb of Claremont, Missouri, streetlights flickered off one by one, surrendering to the colorless dawn. Dew glistened on car roofs, birds murmured in hedges, and the small, almost unnoticeable hum of a world waking up carried through the neighborhood. Inside a 2-story beige house on Linden Street, Emily Hart sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in a college hoodie that smelled faintly of detergent and rain. The phone lay face down in front of her, the cracked corner catching the light. She hadn't slept. Not a minute. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that pulsing blue dot, moving, then stopping out on County Road 19. The coffee in her mug had gone cold hours ago. She didn't drink it. She just needed something to hold, something that wouldn't move on its own. Emily was 26, a nurse at St. Michael's ER. Calm under pressure, people said. Soft voice, steady hands, built for chaos. But this kind of chaos, the kind that comes without warning, without reason, left her shaking. She'd met Jason Miller 3 years earlier, in a grocery store parking lot of all places. He was struggling to start his old Ford, and she'd offered jumper cables with a smile he later said looked like sunlight after rain. Jason worked construction, ran trails on weekends, and called her every night just to say he was home safe. He was supposed to be safe last night, too, when his location stopped moving at 2:14 a.m. She'd stared at it for nearly 10 minutes, trying to convince herself it was a glitch. But the map doesn't lie, and the dot had stopped in the middle of nowhere. She called, no answer. Called again. Static. Then she drove. The police found her there an hour later, sitting in her car at the edge of a field, the engine off, and her headlights dimmed. When they asked what she was doing, she just pointed at the phone. "That's where it says he is," she whispered. Deputy Mark Hanley followed the coordinates and walked 50 yards into the grass. The soil was soft from the night's rain. He saw nothing, just the faint impression of tire tracks and something metallic glinting beneath a layer of mud. It was Jason's phone, face down, still blinking with battery life. They searched until sunrise. No Jason, no sign of struggle, no blood. Just a phone, a field, and a silence that hung like fog. By 8 a.m., word had already spread. Small towns have a way of turning secrets into echoes before the truth ever surfaces. The clerk at Miller's Hardware mentioned seeing Jason the day before, buying rope and duct tape. Another swore she saw his truck parked behind an old diner near the highway that same night. Every story contradicted another. Every person wanted to help or to matter, or both. Emily sat through the questions, repeating the same answers until her voice felt mechanical. "When did you last see him?" "Yesterday morning before work." "Did he seem upset?" "No, just tired." "Was there anyone he might have been meeting?" "No one I know of." But she didn't tell them everything. She didn't mention the message she'd found on his phone 2 nights earlier, a text from an unknown number that read, "You don't get to walk away." In the days that followed, the investigation began quietly. Detectives canvassed the area. Volunteers combed through ditches and tree lines. Dogs were brought in from the county next door. Jason's truck was missing. His credit cards hadn't been used. His phone, now in evidence, contained only one clue. Its last signal pinged near a service road that cut through abandoned farmland. But something about the coordinates bothered Detective Hanley. The phone hadn't just stopped, it had paused, moved slightly, then stopped again. Almost like someone had dropped it. Then changed their mind. He played it off as coincidence, logged the report, and filed it. But at home that night, lying awake next to the window where crickets droned, he couldn't stop picturing that blue dot pulsing in the dark. What if the phone wasn't dropped? What if it was placed? Emily returned to work 3 days later. Her colleagues offering quiet condolences, polite half-hugs, and coffee she couldn't bring herself to drink. Her supervisor suggested she take time off, but she refused. Routine was all she had left. Still, the silence in the hallways pressed down on her. Every intercom buzz, every ringtone made her flinch. She checked her own phone constantly, like it might start moving on its own. That night, she sat on her porch, whined in the chimes, staring out at the street. Across from her, a porch light flicked on in the house Jason used to rent. A new tenant was moving in, a young man dragging boxes out of a pickup, pausing now and then to glance her way, and for a moment, Emily thought she saw movement in the shadows behind him, just a flicker like someone slipping through the yard. But when she blinked, it was gone. The next morning she received a text. No number, no name, just 3 words. Stop looking, Emily. Her stomach turned cold. She showed it to Detective Hanley, who frowned, tracing the text header with his thumb. The number had been masked through a message routing app. Common, untraceable. Could be a prank, he said. Or someone who knows you're on edge. But Emily knew better. That same day, a call came in from a farmer 2 miles north of the original site. He'd found an abandoned truck wedged between trees off an old logging road. The plates matched Jason's. Inside were muddy footprints, a torn receipt from a gas station an hour east, and a faint smell of bleach. The truck had been wiped down. Clean. Too clean. And in the glove box, officers found something stranger still, a folded paper map hand-drawn in pencil. The map showed fields, a creek, and a single small X. Next to the X was written one word: liar. The morning Jason Miller vanished began like any other in early October. Thick air, low fog, and the kind of half-light that makes the world feel paused between seasons. The sun hadn't yet cleared the trees when Jason's neighbor saw him loading the bed of his truck. A tool bag, a gas can, and an old cooler with a cracked lid. He waved once, distracted. The neighbor, a retired mechanic named Dale Combs, remembered later that Jason didn't look tired so much as preoccupied, like someone rehearsing a conversation he wasn't ready to have. At 7:12 a.m., Jason stopped at a BP on Highway 7. Security footage shows him paying cash for coffee and a breakfast sandwich. He's in jeans, flannel, and work boots. His phone sits in his back pocket. No one follows him inside or out. Yet when he drives away, the footage catches something strange in the far corner of the frame. A dark sedan idling at the edge of the lot, its headlights off. No plate is visible. The construction site Jason was scheduled to work that day lay 20 miles east, on the edge of an unfinished housing development called Brookstone Ridge. He arrived at 8:04 a.m. His co-workers remembered him as quieter than usual, eyes bloodshot, movements precise but hollow. Around mid-morning, he stepped away to take a call. Witnesses recall him pacing near the edge of the property, gesturing sharply, voice low. The foreman thought he heard the words, "I told you to stop." 10 minutes later, Jason packed up his tools, told the crew he was leaving early, said his girlfriend wasn't feeling well. He never mentioned Emily's name again that day. By 11:45 a.m., Jason's truck was spotted by traffic cameras heading north on County Road 6, away from both home and the job site. The road leads into a sparsely populated area, old farmhouses, collapsing barns, gravel veins leading nowhere. At 12:03 p.m., his debit card was used at a roadside diner called Lou's Place, an aging clapboard building with faded red trim. The waitress, Denise Harper, remembered him because of how long he sat there, stirring coffee he never drank. She told detectives later, He kept checking the door like he was waiting for someone who might not show. After 40 minutes, he paid in cash, tipped 20%, and walked out. Security footage outside the diner caught his truck pulling away, and once again, that same dark sedan trailing a few car lengths behind. Emily texted him at 12:31. Emily. How's your day going? Jason, fine, just running errands. Emily. Can you grab milk on your way back? Jason. Sure thing. She saved that last message without knowing it would be the last thing he'd ever send. Between 1 and 3 p.m., Jason's phone pinged several cell towers leading north-northeast toward abandoned farmland. Investigators later matched those pings to a narrow logging road that hadn't been used in over a decade. The county map still showed it as public access, but locals called it Dead Creek Road, named for the dry stream bed that cut through its center. At 3:17 p.m., Jason's truck passed the last working security camera in the area, a weather-beaten gas station mounted with a rusted camera aimed at the highway. The footage was grainy but clear enough to show his face in the driver's seat, expression blank. In the passenger seat, barely visible through glare, was a second figure. The county tech tried to enhance the image. The silhouette was narrow-shouldered, wearing a hoodie, gender indeterminate. The passenger's face turned once toward the camera, a blurred suggestion of eyes, but not enough to identify. Jason didn't appear afraid. Just resigned. When his truck was found days later, the passenger side seatbelt was buckled. The driver's was not. The dashboard clock had frozen at 3:41. Investigators noted that the battery was still half full, meaning the truck must have been turned off intentionally, not stalled. In the glove box, that folded paper map with the word liar waited like a whisper. But what no one mentioned yet, not to the press, not even to Emily, was the small piece of duct tape found beneath the passenger seat stuck to the carpet fibers. On it, faintly visible in marker, were the letters EH. That night, while Emily worked the ER, her phone buzzed with a missed call from an unknown number. The voicemail was 11 seconds long. No voice, just the faint rush of air and a sound like a car engine idling. When she played it back for detectives, the timestamp matched almost exactly with the last recorded location ping from Jason's phone. 2:12 a.m., County Road 19. The same night the dot stopped moving. For investigators, timelines became everything. They built one from fragments. Core 12. BP gas station, 8:10 4 a.m. construction. Site 11:30 a.m. Leaves work. Early. 12:03 p.m. Scene at Lou's. Diner, 1:23 p.m. Phone pings north through rural towers. 12 a.m. Final signal. The 16-hour gap between 3 p.m. and 2 a.m. became the void everyone tried to fill. At 5 p.m., the day of his disappearance, a teenage couple hiking near the Dead Creek area reported hearing what sounded like two voices arguing. One male, one female. They couldn't make out words, but they remembered the male saying something like, "It doesn't matter now." Then a car door slammed. Then silence. They didn't report it until 2 days later, when news of Jason's disappearance reached town. Meanwhile, Emily was starting to notice things around her that didn't make sense. The day after Jason went missing, she found his spare car key sitting on the porch rail, something he always kept on his ring. She thought maybe the police had left it, but when she asked, they hadn't. That night, her porch light flickered, once, twice, then went out. She told herself it was wiring, told herself the mind invents patterns when it's desperate for order. But when she opened her phone the next morning, the Find My iPhone app showed another device, Jason's old work phone, the one he'd turned in months earlier, registered again, pinging faintly from an address just outside town. She drove there without telling anyone. It was a storage unit facility, the kind where every door looks the same and every sound echoes. Her breath clouded in the cold air as she stepped through the rows. The signal grew stronger. Unit 47. Locked. She pressed her ear against the door and heard nothing. But when she checked the small keypad by the gate, she saw a faint smear of mud on the buttons, like someone had been there recently. She called Hanley. By the time deputies arrived, the signal was gone. The unit was empty except for a folding chair, a plastic bottle, and a torn piece of paper with half a word on it. While investigators expanded their search, Hanley ordered a deeper look into Jason's phone records. What they found opened a new layer of unease. In the week before his disappearance, Jason had made 11 calls to a number registered under a name that didn't exist, Marla Keene. The address linked to that name traced to a burned-down property 3 counties over. No utilities, no mail delivery. And 2 nights before Jason vanished, that same number texted him, "Don't forget what you promised." When detectives pulled his digital backup, they found that message had been deleted twice, once manually, once through an auto-wipe app installed the same night. The app required a passcode Emily didn't know. Around town, speculation became wildfire. Some said Jason was running from debt. Others whispered about an affair. But Emily's gut refused both. Jason wasn't a liar, not the kind who could fake tenderness, not the kind who would erase himself. Still, every detail that surfaced painted him in more contradiction. Rope and duct tape purchases, secret calls, hidden phones. And then there was the message she couldn't unsee, the one from that unknown number days earlier. "You don't get to walk away." Detectives traced it through several encrypted routes until it dead-ended at a prepaid SIM registered in a gas station 2 hours away. Security footage from that store captured only one person buying prepaid cards that week. A woman with long blonde hair, face obscured by a scarf. When Emily saw the still image, her chest tightened. She knew that scarf. It was the one Jason's sister had given her last Christmas. The revelation pulled her into a current she couldn't escape. She hadn't spoken to Jason's sister, Hannah Miller, in months. Not since a quiet argument at a family dinner about trust and boundaries. Hannah was fiercely protective, skeptical of Emily's calm composure. Now Hannah wasn't answering calls. When detectives visited her apartment, they found it empty, clothes gone, utilities shut off, mail piling by the door. Her lease had ended 3 days before Jason disappeared. Hanley stared at the date on the notice, exhaling through his teeth. It wasn't a coincidence that night. Emily sat in her car outside the field where the phone had been found. The grass had grown back, but the ground still felt wrong, too soft, too quiet. She turned off her headlights and watched the dark spread around her, swallowing the edges of the road. Somewhere out there, she thought, was the moment everything had broken. A notification blinked on her screen. "Find my iPhone has detected motion." Her heart seized. The signal was faint, miles east near Dead Creek Road. She watched as it flickered once, twice, then stabilized. The same blue dot, moving. She started the engine and drove. When deputies later reconstructed that night, they used traffic cam footage and Emily's phone records to map her route. Between 2:01 and 2:13 a.m., she traveled along County Road 19, the signal pulsing ahead of her, leading into the mist. At 2:14, the dot stopped. Emily slowed to a crawl, headlights cutting through fog. There was a shape on the shoulder, a figure in dark clothing, motionless, one arm bent beneath them. She called out, voice trembling. No answer. When she stepped closer, the fog lifted enough to reveal the truth. It wasn't Jason, it was a mannequin, a store dummy, its face smeared with dirt, phone taped to its chest. Jason's phone, still glowing with that same blue map. In its hand was a note written in pencil. Wet and smeared, but still legible. "You're following the wrong liar." The mannequin changed everything. Not because it was grotesque, though it was, but because it meant someone was watching. Whoever placed Jason's phone there had studied Emily's movements. They knew she would use that app again, knew she'd come. It wasn't random. It was a performance. Detective Mark Hanley stood over the scene as dawn rolled through the mist, eyes half closed, jaw tight. The phone was bagged, the mannequin photographed, the note preserved in its plastic sleeve. But the question hung in the air like exhaust. Who was the liar now? Evidence teams spent the next 48 hours combing the area around Dead Creek Road. They found tire imprints near the ditch, not Jason's truck, but a smaller vehicle, likely a sedan, same as the one seen trailing him. A partial tread match surfaced later, Michelin Primacy MXV4. Common, mid-range, forgettable, no footprints, no cigarette butts, no DNA, just calculated emptiness. Hanley watched the technicians pack up, feeling the weight of futility press into his ribs. Every clue was clean, controlled, someone working ahead of them, 2 steps into their next move. In his gut, He felt the kind of dread that doesn't announce itself as fear, but as clarity. Whoever orchestrated this wasn't improvising. They were finishing something that had already begun. The mannequin's phone still held faint fingerprints, Jason's, Emily's, and a third, partial. Forensics couldn't match it to any known record, but something odd surfaced. Under the battery panel, a folded receipt. It was from Lou's place. Timestamp 12:03 p.m., same as Jason's lunch. But the purchase wasn't coffee. It was 2 meals. Hanley replayed the diner footage again, watching Jason stir his cup. Then, in the reflection of the window behind him, he saw it. A flicker of motion. Someone sitting at the booth across the aisle. The angle was bad, but a fragment of blonde hair, a sleeve, and a silver ring caught the camera's light. When he zoomed in, his pulse slowed. The ring was distinctive, twisted silver with a missing stone. Emily wore the same ring. He didn't confront her immediately. Instead, he drove to her house that night, parked half a block away, and watched. Through the living room window, she sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone, a blanket wrapped tight around her. No sign of deception, just exhaustion. Still, the reflection in that diner window wouldn't leave him. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. He took the theory to his partner, Detective Rowan, a newer officer but sharp as a blade. Rowan studied the image and frowned. "That's not Emily," she said finally. "Look at the ring finger. Right hand. Emily wears hers on the left." Hanley exhaled slowly. Relief, then something darker. Anticipation. When they cross-referenced the diner's payment logs, they found that 2 meals were paid for, yes, but only 1 bill. The second meal was comped. The waitress remembered Jason asking for an extra plate. When asked why, she said, "He told me someone was meeting him but didn't want to be seen." That someone, investigators realized, had arrived after the footage ended. The camera auto-timed out to preserve storage. Meanwhile, Emily's world kept collapsing inward. Reporters began to circle, her phone filled with messages from unknown numbers. "We know what you did." Her mailbox was stuffed with blank envelopes, each containing a single printed word, liar, in block letters. She stopped going to work. Her supervisor left messages that went unanswered. Neighbors avoided eye contact. At night, she'd wake to the sound of a car idling outside, headlights off. By the time she reached the window, it was gone. Hanley decided to bring her in for questioning again, not as a suspect, not yet, but as a tether to reality. They met in a small interview room at the county station. The light was low, the table scratched, the air heavy with coffee and silence. "Emily," he began gently, "we think Jason met someone that day, someone he trusted. Do you know who that might have been?" She stared down at her hands, thumb tracing her ring. "He never told me about anyone, but there was something strange the week before he disappeared." "What's that?" "He kept locking the bedroom door when he wasn't home. I asked him about it once, and he said it was because of his tools. But when I finally opened it, the closet smelled like paint thinner." Hanley tilted his head. "Paint thinner?" She nodded. "And there were boxes, big ones, sealed shut. Did you look inside?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I tried. But the next day they were gone." Back at the property, detectives obtained a warrant and searched the closet. No boxes, no chemicals, but they did find residue on the carpet consistent with turpentine and industrial adhesive. Lab tests showed traces of synthetic fibers, the kind used in mannequins. Hanley stood in the doorway, staring at the faint stains. "He had that mannequin before he vanished," he said. "Or whoever took him did." 2 weeks passed. No body, no Jason, just fragments orbiting a void. Then came a call from a tow yard outside Springfield. A blue Ford pickup had been found stripped to frame, dumped near a riverbank. Vin confirmed Jason Miller's inside the rusted glove box. They found something that shouldn't have survived the water. A plastic evidence tag from a different case file. Marked property of Detective Hanley, except Hanley had never seen it before. Internal Affairs launched a quiet review. Someone was trying to paint him into the story. He'd seen it before. Small-town paranoia, the way guilt searches for a home. But this felt deliberate. Too neat. That night, he found an envelope slid under his door. Inside, a single Polaroid Jason, standing in daylight, eyes open, holding a sign with one word. Liar. The photo's corner was marked with a timestamp 2 days after his disappearance. Forensics dated the film. Authentic. The kind manufactured before 2010. Discontinued stock. Whoever took it had gone to effort. The backdrop showed an old metal shed rusted with a distinct dent in the roofline. Rowan spent a night combing through drone maps until she found a match. A cluster of derelict barns near the outskirts of Hollis County, 30 miles south. When they arrived, the smell hit first: damp soil, gasoline, decay. The shed door creaked under Hanley's hand. Inside, empty beer cans, rope fibers, and on the wall, a pinned section of printed satellite maps. Each map showed rural Missouri roads with certain locations circled. At the top of one, handwritten, "Everyone lies," and beneath it, taped in the corner, was another Polaroid, Emily, asleep in her car. The photo chilled him. Same framing, same signature, time-stamped only a week earlier. Someone was stalking her, feeding off her grief like a game. Rowan scanned the scene with her flashlight, the beam catching something under debris, a small recorder. Cracked but blinking red. She hit play, static. Then Jason's voice, low, trembling. "If you're hearing this, I messed up. She wasn't who she said she was." The phone. She said she could track everything. "I tried to leave, but it's too late." Then a woman's voice, faint, almost affectionate. "Smile for the picture, Jason." Click. End of recording. Emily was brought back in. They played the audio. Her face drained of color. "That's not my voice," she whispered. "That's not me." Hanley believed her. But someone clearly wanted to make it seem otherwise. Forensic audio analysis later confirmed it. The voice was synthetically altered, spliced together from recordings of Emily's 911 calls and voicemails. Artificial mimicry. A manufactured ghost. Whoever orchestrated this had access to her digital life. As the investigation widened, they uncovered that Jason had been working side jobs under an alias, J. Morgan, doing renovation work for cash. One client's name stood out, Marla Keene, the same name linked to the burner phone. When detectives traced payment receipts, they found transfers from an online escrow account under a different name, Hannah Miller, Jason's sister. It wasn't proof of guilt, but it wasn't nothing. Hanley and Rowan drove out to the address associated with the payments, an abandoned farmhouse swallowed by weeds. Inside, dust, cobwebs, and walls marked with handwriting. Phrases repeated over and over. "Find the liar. Find the phone. Find the truth." In the corner sat a laptop, battery corroded, fan silent. On the screen, frozen mid-load, the Find My iPhone interface. Multiple devices tracked Jason's, Emily's, and one labeled simply Hannah's secret. Rowan pulled the data card. When forensics later extracted it, they found hundreds of screenshots, GPS trails, message captures, and timestamps of every location Emily had visited in the past 2 weeks. The stalker hadn't just been following Jason, they'd been following her. Hanley's breath fogged against the cold office window as he pieced it together. Jason's guilt, Emily's panic, Hannah's disappearance, and a third party manipulating them all. But what if Hannah wasn't missing? What if she'd orchestrated the whole thing? The pieces began to align. The scarf in the gas station video, the fake messages, the mannequin, the Polaroids. Each step designed to drag Emily deeper, to twist guilt around her throat until she couldn't breathe. Still, one detail refused to fit. The Polaroid timestamp placing Jason alive 2 days after his disappearance. If Hannah had taken it, why would she leave proof he was still alive? Unless she hadn't meant to, unless someone wanted her framed too. Late that night, Hanley's phone vibrated. Unknown number. A voice distorted through static whispered, "She's not the liar." "You are." Then a click. When he checked his caller ID, the number matched Jason's, except Jason's SIM had been destroyed in evidence. For the first time in his career, Hanley felt the case folding back on itself, investigator and victim blurring. He looked down at the desk where Jason's old phone lay sealed in its plastic bag. The screen, long drained of power, flickered once. A ghost pulse, then dark again. He stared at it for a long time before saying softly, "Show me where, then." And as if in answer, the phone powered itself back on. The Find My iPhone map reappeared. One device active. Label, Liar 02. Location, Hanley's home address. For 2 hours, Detective Hanley sat in his car across from his own house. The engine was off. The street was empty. Yet his phone kept pulsing, one blue dot locked on his address as if something inside was alive. Every instinct told him to wait for backup, to turn the case over, to stop. But curiosity has a gravity stronger than fear. He stepped out, the night air cold enough to bite his lungs. Crickets rasped in the grass and a single porch light burned where it shouldn't, his. He hadn't left it on. Inside, the air felt wrong. Not dangerous, wrong. A faint sweetness, chemical like cleaning fluid cut with dust. The house looked untouched. Keys still on the counter, mail unopened. But as he stepped deeper, the quiet changed. He heard something faint, a rhythmic hum, electronic pulsing from the living room. He followed it. On the coffee table sat his laptop, screen open. He hadn't used it in days. A video was playing on loop. A still frame of his own front yard from a camera angle he didn't recognize. The timestamp read live. Someone was streaming his house from inside his house. He unplugged the power, killed the feed. But another sound bled through, an alert tone, high and sharp. From his coat pocket, his phone vibrated again. The map app opened on its own. The blue dot was gone. In its place was text, slowly typing itself across the screen, letter by letter, as if an unseen hand was answering him. Now you understand. Then coordinates appeared. Same county, same field, County Road 19, the place where it all began. By the time Hanley reached the field, fog had rolled in low and heavy. His headlights caught the grass in streaks of silver. Dew clung to his boots as he crossed the same distance he'd walked the first night of the search. But now the ground wasn't just soft, it was disturbed. Freshly turned, he crouched, ran his fingers through the soil, beneath the surface plastic. He called it in before he dug, voice steady but dry. When the rest of the team arrived, the dig revealed a shallow pit. Inside, wrapped in tarp, was a human shape. Hanley stepped back, jaw set. They opened it. It wasn't Jason. It was Hannah Miller. The body was weeks old. Hands bound. Neck bruised. Traces of adhesive on her wrists. But the strangest detail wasn't how she died, it was what she was holding. An iPhone. Screen dark. Battery corroded. When the forensics team powered it through an external port, the lock screen lit up. The wallpaper was a photo, Jason and Emily, smiling. Timestamp 3 days after Jason disappeared. Back at the precinct, the revelation detonated like quiet thunder. Everything they thought they knew inverted. If Hannah was dead, who had been using her name? Who had texted Jason? Who had planted the mannequin? And most of all, who had access to Find My iPhone data for every single device involved? Rowan traced the signal routing through Apple's server logs, expecting nothing. What she found instead froze her mid-sentence. The activity logs from all 3 phones, Jason's, Emily's, and Hannah's, shared one IP origin, Hanley's. For 30 seconds, no one spoke. The hum of fluorescent lights filled the silence. Hanley stood over the monitor, staring at his own reflection in the glass. "That's impossible," he whispered. "My home Wi-Fi's locked down, 2-factor, everything." Rowan didn't move. "Then someone's been inside your network." "For weeks," he exhaled, slow. "Or, someone's been inside my life." They pulled his router logs. Found remote access initiated from an internal device, a workstation registered to the department. It wasn't a hack. It was a leak. The intruder had been feeding on their own investigation, using their tools against them. Rowan dug deeper. The login credentials traced to a staff account last used 9 months ago, Jason Miller's daughter, before his disappearance. Jason had done electrical work for the county precinct, temporary contractor, IT maintenance for security systems. His credentials had never been deactivated. Every login, every ping, every Find My iPhone trace had passed through Jason's ghost account. He'd built the map that trapped them all. The revelation landed like gravity. Jason wasn't missing because he was hunted. He was missing because he'd set the trap himself. The phone in the mannequin's chest wasn't a decoy. It was a message: you're following the wrong liar, and the liar wasn't Emily, it wasn't Hannah. It was him. Hanley replayed the timeline again, every decision recolored under new light. Jason leaving work early, buying rope and duct tape, sitting in the diner waiting, pretending to be followed while staging his own disappearance. But why bury his sister? Why build this labyrinth of grief and surveillance? The answer surfaced through fragments. Jason's debts, his double life as J. Morgan, the escrow accounts under Hannah's name. She had discovered his fraud, threatened to expose him. He'd silenced her. Then he'd rewritten the story, turning his guilt into a ghost hunt. At 2:14 a.m. that night, when Emily tracked the moving dot, she hadn't been chasing Jason's killer. She'd been chasing Jason himself, on the run, staging a final performance, letting his devices draw the shape of his own vanishing act, until something went wrong. The mannequin wasn't his plan. It was someone else's response, someone who'd found out what he did to Hannah. Rowan uncovered the last piece by accident. Hidden in the metadata of the liar Polaroids was a GPS tag, one frame misaligned by milliseconds. It pinpointed a farmhouse near Hollis County. When they raided it, they expected emptiness. Instead, the door swung open to the smell of damp wood and iron. A man sat at a table, head bowed, wrists bound by his own rope. The skin was pale, the eyes open but glassy. Jason Miller. He'd been dead for days. On the table beside him, a phone, screen glowing faintly, still logged in to Find My iPhone. Its interface displayed two devices, one labeled Jason's iPhone, the other labeled Hanley's iPhone. The cursor blinked beside a single line of text typed into the Notes app. He lied to all of us. The coroner's report called it suicide. Pills, whiskey, exposure. But Hanley didn't buy it. No one chooses to die holding an app open. No one types final words into an interface built for tracking. Someone wanted him to die this way, to end where his lies began. Forensics later determined Jason's last signal was manually transmitted after death, a timed send, scripted automation triggered through cloud sync. He'd built it to keep the map alive long after he was gone, to lead them back, to make the phone tell the story. But that automation required access after death, a second user, Hanley's own credentials, cloned from his department account, meaning the liar's final map wasn't drawn by Jason. It was finished by someone who knew exactly how to make the story never end. Days later, as Hanley sat in his darkened office, paperwork surrounding him like tombstones, Rowan slid a small bag across the desk. Inside, a flash drive found beneath. Jason's body. She'd been hesitant to open it alone. He plugged it in, the screen filled with folder after folder, each named after people involved in the case. Emily, Hannah, Hanley. Inside Hanley's folder, hundreds of photos. Him at home, at work, in his car. Dates stretching back months before Jason vanished, every image watermarked with the same signature. Liars 02. Hanley leaned back, chest hollow. Whoever Liars 02 was, they'd been here all along, watching, waiting, using Jason's chaos as camouflage. He scrolled to the last file. A video. He clicked play. Grainy footage filled the screen. Hanley's living room. Himself sitting on the couch. Then a figure stepped into frame behind him. Face hidden by a hood, phone raised. A whisper bled through the speaker, distorted but clear enough to twist his stomach. I told you to stop. The same voice from Jason's call at the construction site. Hanley froze the frame, enhanced it. The figure's hand was visible now, thin, feminine, wearing a silver ring with a missing stone. Emily's ring. He called for Rowan, but she was already gone. Her desk empty, badge missing. In her drawer, they found a prepaid SIM card and a note. Find me if you can. The department went into lockdown. Search warrants, internal memos, public silence. But the truth was already loose. Rowan hadn't just studied the case, she'd fed it. Moved evidence, forged timestamps, edited footage. All under the guise of investigation. She had been the shadow behind Jason's plan, the second architect. She'd met Jason through county systems months before the disappearance, posing as an informant for one of his side jobs. When his fraud collapsed, she saw opportunity. Together, they designed a story that would erase them both. Him as victim, her as ghost. But somewhere, he turned on her. And she finished it alone. Hanley's house remained under surveillance for weeks after the reveal. The map stopped updating. The dots went dark, until one night, exactly 1 month later, his phone buzzed again. A single notification from Find My iPhone. Device located. The label read, Rowan's iPhone. Coordinates, County Road 19. He didn't drive there. Not this time. He just stared at the screen until the notification faded and the map zoomed out to a blank world. The roads erased. The blue dot blinked once, twice, then vanished for good. By the time the case closed, winter had settled like a bruise across Missouri. Frost feathered the windshields and mornings broke in colorless silence. County Road 19 was empty again. No sirens, no flashlights, no footprints. Only wind through dead grass, whispering over the ground where 3 lives had folded into one lie. The official report called it a closed homicide-suicide with officer involvement. But no one in Claremont believed that. Not really, because what happened on that field and what bled through those phones had stopped being about evidence. It had become about what people choose to believe when the truth is unbearable. Emily left town before the first snow. No forwarding address, no goodbye. Her house sat hollow for months, blinds half drawn, a single porch light flickering at dusk. Neighbors said a moving truck came one morning and was gone by noon. The only thing left behind was a small cardboard box on the front steps, addressed to Detective Hanley. Inside, her silver ring. The one with the missing stone. Underneath it, a note in looping script. You can stop looking now. Hanley never spoke publicly about it. But his colleagues noticed he stopped carrying his phone everywhere, stopped trusting screens, stopped sleeping through the night. The department rebuilt itself around the silence that followed. Rowan was never found. Her accounts vanished, her trail erased. The Bureau kept the case open under ongoing internal investigation, though everyone knew what that meant, another file aging in the dark. Still, once a month an alert would ping deep in the precinct servers. A device has been located. Same message, same coordinates, always County Road. They tried to trace it once more, but the coordinates led to empty air, a field swallowed by time and snow. Hanley retired 2 years later. The newspaper printed a short piece. Detective N's career marked by mystery. No mention of Jason or Emily or Rowan, just his years of service. His steady hands, his quiet dedication. But on his final night in the office, long after the lights dimmed and the janitor left, he sat alone with the evidence box one last time. Inside were 3 phones, Jason's, Emily's, and his own. He placed them side by side on the table, their cracked glass catching the faint glow of the desk lamp. Each one held a piece of the story. Each one had lied. He powered on Jason's first, nothing, then Emily's, battery dead. Finally, his own. The screen blinked awake, familiar interface, same weary wallpaper, except one icon pulsed at the top. Find my iPhone. He hadn't opened it in years. But now, without touching anything, the app loaded on its own. 3 devices appeared. Jason's, Emily's, Rowan's, their status, online. And below them, in bold letters, a message. Someone is still lying. The screen flickered, the map zoomed in. The blinking dot wasn't on County Road 19 anymore. It was in his house. That night, his neighbors heard the low growl of an engine starting, tires crunching frost, a car fading into distance. He drove out of Claremont without lights, the road ahead a thin white ribbon beneath the moon. He didn't bring a phone. He didn't bring a gun, just the box of evidence and a quiet resignation. At the old field, he stopped the car and stepped out into the cold. The ground was frozen solid now, the same earth that had given up one body after another. He placed the box down and opened it. The phone sat there, inert, reflections of his own face fractured 3 ways. For a long time he said nothing. Then he whispered into the dark. Whichever of you's left, you win. He turned away, leaving the phones to the frost. Minutes later, if anyone had been there, they would have seen it, the faint glow of 3 screens flickering to life in perfect unison, each displaying the same pulsing blue dot. Not on a map this time, just a single word in white text, liar. By spring, grass covered the field again. Rain softened the soil, erasing tire tracks, burying footprints, turning memory to myth. Hikers passing through sometimes mentioned poor reception in that area, phones freezing, apps opening on their own. Locals stopped calling it County Road 19. They had another name for it now, the Liar's Field. At night, they say, if you drive past with your phone unlocked, the map sometimes shifts. A faint dot appears where there shouldn't be one. glowing pale blue against the black. And if you tap it, it doesn't show a location. It just says found